Good to have you join us on Insight today. Now that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement has been signed by Nigeria, it's raised a lot of concerns when Nigeria said it will not sign, but undergoing consultation in the public and private sectors, just like the Economic Partnership Agreement muted by the European Union. Nigeria said it will not sign, and up to now, Nigeria has not signed because Nigeria says it is in violation of the World Trade Organization Treaty. Now, Nigeria has signed the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. So, on discussion segment today, we shall be looking at safeguards ahead of the takeoff of this free trade area in Africa. Is Nigeria ready? Is Africa ready? Have we plotted the loopholes to ensure that should businessmen, developed countries would not come, brainwash our people to truncate the process in Africa? That will be the focus on discussion segment on Insight. On Media Review?
All right, we call it the biggest signature ever in the history of Africa. But on the media, on the segment, we shall be taking a look at the role of the media in driving the components of the agreement. What do we stand to gain? How would an ordinary Nigerian understand what the agreement means? So we have a lot to discuss on the segment, and my guess is very vast.
Okay, we just hope and believe that the business desk of all media has released it up and break it
down, yes,
to the understanding of every
for a
Nigerian.
layman.
Okay, that's the focus. Up next on Insight is the discussion segment. Don't go away. On discussion segment today, we shall be looking at safeguards ahead of the full takeoff of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement in Africa. This is not a Nigerian thing, but if the safeguards are not in place, is it possible that some smart companies, some groups, some individuals, even some Nigerians could liaise or collaborate with some shrewd businessmen outside Africa to ensure the process fails? Well, my guests on set, I have Ken Okoha. Ken Okoha is the president of Nigerian Traders Association, and he is a member of the Presidential Steering Committee on Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Good to have you on Insight.
Thank you very much, Adam.
Also, I have Ni Akinsiju, investment analyst, and for information, Ni Akinsiju is also the chairman Buhari Media Organization. Good to have you on Insight.
A pleasure, thanks.
Yes, this agreement has been signed after much consultation by Nigeria, and you happen to be the president of Nigerian Traders Association, beside being the presidential steering committee. What are the safeguards in place?
Well, for every agreement, every trade agreement, every trade and economic agreement, so to speak, there must be safeguards in place. And those safeguards are written in black and white. And then there's also a protocol on safeguards. And one of these safeguards could be the rules of origin, which talks about where the goods are originating or the level of value addition that is on that particular good. So if it does not come or originate entirely from a member of the parties in the agreement, then it is no longer acceptable. And then we also have what we call technical barriers. We also have administrative barriers. And all of these are courtesy of the WTO General Agreements on Tariff and Trade. But in this case, the AfCFTA is a trade agreement negotiated by parties within the African continent, 54 countries. Now, if we understand this very clearly, what it means is that whereas the EPA was dealing with issues of trade, liberalization, issues of the liberation of services also that was talked about between Africa and Europe. This one is talking about intra-Africa, intra. Now, let's move a bit out of the definition. There are two things that should have brought some concerns, perhaps the gap you're looking at in the EPA, that the AfCFTA would also be, happy to look at. One is the extent of liberalization. Okay. Under the EPA, there was a 75% liberalization. Of course, you see, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire had about 81 and 83% in terms of their interim agreements under the EPA. But West Africa, under ECOWAS, succeeded in negotiating 75% liberalization. But here we are under the AfCFTA, it is a 90% liberalization. Now, the differences also is in the level of development. The EU is a structurally developed economy. The EU, one of the reasons why we refused signing the EPA is because, one, all the analysis that were conducted at that time when we were negotiating were all showing negative, serious implications, debilitating ones against Nigeria. And of course, the EU was gaining so much so far, and Nigeria was losing more. And we said, no, we can't get into an agreement with our eyes open where we will subjugate our economy into the hands of somebody who is going to benefit more, and then we are losing.
So is it not possible with what you have analyzed now? What you have analyzed now, that if the EFC takes off, right, yes, that maybe I'm France, for instance, you are, say, Sierra Leone, for instance, I could package a product and come to
that's what I'm heading to.
Drop it in Sierra Leone, and in Sierra Leone
how this works.
We rebrand it and call it Sierra Leone products.
No, you need to understand this.
Okay.
And I've mentioned earlier the standard rules of origin, which is embedded in every agreement as a safeguard.
Good.
It's a technical one. So if these goods are coming from Sierra Leone, number one is that they must be originating from Sierra Leone. That means everything about it is from Sierra Leone, not from a third party.
How will you know?
Nothing. Thank you. That's where I'm coming to. Because, there is also under that same rules of origin what we call value addition.
Okay.
That particular product, the rules of origin may say up to 60%, just like it is in the ETLS, ECOWAS Trade Liberation Scheme. In the whole of ECOWAS, it permits about 40% value addition. Okay? So that means that you can source 40% of the raw materials used in production of that particular item from outside the enclave of that agreement. Okay. So that's how it works. But beyond the rules of origin safeguard, there are other mechanisms. Take, for instance, administrative mechanisms, safeguards, we call them. There are technical safeguards, technical barriers. There are also administrative barriers. Administrative in the sense that you can say, okay, well, there are quota. There is these goods are coming into volumes, into Nigeria in volumes, and we are not sure that you are the one producing such volume because you do not have the capacity to produce, such volume in your country. And I give you an instance of what happened under oil in West Africa here. And at the point, we discovered that a lot of oil were, palm oil was coming into Nigeria from, other West African countries under the ETLS.
Okay.
And, wait a minute. We said, look, come on. There is no country in West Africa that can produce such quantity.
Exactly, yeah.
Then, we now triggered what we call some examinations. And later, we now discovered that some countries, I don't want to mention their names, in West Africa, were importing palm oil from Malaysia, and then repackaging and sending to Nigeria. And writing that.
Now we are getting worried about.
That's the worry, the
yes,
concern you are talking about. But here, we are also talking about that's what triggers the essence of the jolting up of.
Okay, let me leave this and go to the two of you. Now, this document came in from the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Says the administration is making more investments in the agri sector, 11 fertilizer blending plants with a capacity of 2.1 million revived. Fertilizer price has since dropped from 13,000 naira per 50 kg to 5,500. Boost in local production as official imports down to 2%. Now, going further, where I'm going to now, so that we'll go now. The Vice President noted that with a substantial percentage of the world's arable land and over half of that uncultivated, it is becoming clearer that Africa and Nigeria have the potential to become a major food basket in the world. According to him, China's demand alone has 27% of the world's population, but only 7% of the world's arable land for agriculture. China needs 2 million tons of hybrid soya beans per annum for livestock feed, and vegetable oil have not met that demand. Now, if this is the potential we have, and we don't check it, we fear that some smart business people, some shrewd business people from Africa, from Nigeria, from the African countries, will connive with the developed world to make this thing a failure in Africa. That's the worry. I don't know.
Your concerns are legitimate, quite all right.
Absolutely.
But what we're also saying is that those concerns can be turned to opportunities. Now, where the vice president perhaps will be looking at it from is the opportunities there. And you are looking at the threats.
It's beautiful.
It is good to understand
the opportunities are there, but if we don't work towards them.
No. The opportunities rather present to us investments that can come in. Somebody can say, okay, these guys have arable land. They have this. Let me move in. Let me move from China to come to this place. So as to be part and parcel of that. And by so doing, he's increasing your productivity. You are also leveraging on the employment opportunities created therein. He's also making sure that whatever you produce can also be latched upon and exported to other countries.
To follow up on that, given the trade area's potential to configure intra-African market and continent's relationship with global trading systems, consulting Nigerians should play an important role in signing the agreement. Given where we are regarding that we didn't sign EPA, Nigeria had a position to say we won't sign EPA because, one, EPA is already in violation. And for information, EPA is the Economic Partnership Agreement. It's already in violation of the World Trade Organization Treaty. Now, this has been signed. So, if we don't contemplate moving on beyond where we are in terms of just being a production economy, what happens?
Well, I think we also need to first contextualize the Nigeria's own philosophy and the undercurrent of our relationship, of our foreign relationship. Our foreign relationship is principally African-focused. So for me, the AfCFTA in the first instance is an original concept that should be naturally resident in the Nigerian psyche, as it were. Historically, the Nigerian nation had always focused on being the pivot of activities and developments in Africa. And we have seen our activities either in Liberia, Sierra Leone, other countries in Africa. So it is essentially a Nigerian-made idea. And we can say that because before now, before the gale of consultations, the making of AfCFTA was principally a Nigerian thought-led concept. But it got to that stage of realization, and there was that need to further consult because of the fear you have expressed here, fear of dumping, fear of smuggling, fear of third-party countries, exploiting some loopholes to dump their own goods and all that in the Nigerian jurisdiction. But the truth of the matter is, I think this agreement, this trade zone area would serve and advance the economic cause of Nigeria, perhaps better than any other jurisdiction, any other country in Africa, if it is properly done. And part of being properly done is this consultation that the president had undertaken. Now, the president signing the agreement is actually a vitiation of the fact that he had given the right of advice and counsel to the stakeholders. It is not a federal government decision. It is the decision of stakeholders that are directly involved in trading and transaction activities in Nigeria and across Nigerian borders. So to that extent, I see a buy-in of all stakeholders. and a commitment of those stakeholders to make this work. And sincerely, this should be the approach to making policy work. It's the bottom-up approach. You take this idea to the people that are directly interested, that are directly concerned, and let them make the decision. Now, the beauty of this is that it is not just only the federal government that want to make this work, but those that had counseled the president to sign this agreement
Just very
that want to make it work.
Let me take on the very last one now on this particular area before we continue. Is if you're asked to mobilize everybody, what strategy will you use so that they're keen to it? Because some people will now say, it's their thing. It's not our thing.
No.
It's an African thing.
No. It can't be said so.
Okay.
Do you know why?
You know?
Because it's an opportunity created for the private sector. It's also an opportunity created for job creation. It's also an opportunity created for those who are leaving schools, who are looking for jobs. Now, do you know that it's an opportunity for this human being, this young man who has been looking for a job, and there's no white-collar job. Government is so oversaturated in terms of employment in the government work. But then he sees that factory A, B, C or XYZ is producing one item. But then because of his new knowledge, because of what he came out from university with, he now says, I am going to add value to that A, B, C that this company is producing. And it comes up with innovation.
Okay.
And, because such innovation is what is needed that will create great market for that particular company, the company quickly, receives him. He becomes an employee already. If not so, he can sell what he has, the intellectual property he has, to that factory. And make money. These are opportunities there. But there's something that is very important that we need to look at there. When we're talking about population of people that would, latch into the agreement, into the opportunities here. Every country where you go to in Africa, you must find Nigerian traders. Okay. In their thousands, if not millions. Okay. Now, if that is the case, they must be used by government as ambassadors of this AfCFTA. Okay. And that's one idea that I think that the president would need to initiate a meeting between the presidency and Nigerian traders. Let's sit down and dialogue. There are things that these traders will let the president know, or whoever the president, identifies as his representative, that the government do not know. Okay. And these are the keys that will help us to take over.
And we can come from another point of view.
Yes.
Establish that this point of view is validated, The fears of a trade war between China and U.S. For me, what I'm seeing is opportunities. Okay. Because what it means is that U.S. is scaling up tariffs on China products. Because, again, rule of origin, U.S. is aware of where the products are coming from and is sanctioning the product more or less, directly or indirectly. Now, what you see going forward, if this war is sustained, are companies producing those products, in China, relocating to more amiable, mitigating jurisdiction to produce same and export.
What if there are no laws to check them?
No, they are not. We are not talking of loss now. We are talking of opportunities.
No laws in place to sanction those who will attempt to do my fears.
No, you don't. What I'm saying is this. Yeah. I've even moved from AfCFTA to the trade war between China and U.S., where U.S. is premeditatively sanctioning China for so many reasons. Now, for a smart investor in China, because the origin of the product is China, and the destination of that product is a state in the U.S., the U.S. is sanctioning based on that transaction lines. Now, that smart investor would say, okay, rather than produce in China and export to China, to U.S. from China, why don't I relocate my production outfit to Nigeria, to Botswana, or wherever? When you locate to Nigeria, you become a Nigerian entity. we can produce and then supply, export to China. I'm just talking about the trade war now. Now, in the same vein, for instance, this rule of origin we're talking about.
Yes.
I think in the AfCFTA, it's 80%, that the content sourced from the originating jurisdiction must be 80%, and value added must be 20%. There are going to be provisions for originating jurisdiction for examinations, so that you do not just export to your private jurisdictions without examination. So you have examination officers that will also profile the contents and approve. These are some of the administrative contents, of the agreement that will go with it. We are not saying, it's going to be foolproof. I don't think so. There will still be some social elements that will want to exploit some of these loopholes. But again, there is a consciousness, of these weaknesses, as it were. And once there is a consciousness, a policy has been put, or policies have been put in place, it will only need to strengthen the policies, as it were. And like I said, we may be scared of our own jurisdiction, fearful of dumping, fearful of smuggling, fearful of even competitiveness, of our jurisdiction. But I am saying that more than anything, we still have a stronger, higher capacity to produce competitively, going forward. And we are not talking just about 1 year, 2 years. We are not talking of just the near term. We are talking of the medium to long term. Okay. So even if we are disadvantaged in the near term, and we are conscious of our capacity, what we need to do is to strengthen our capacity going forward, so that in the mid-term to the long term, we can profitably exploit these opportunities.
Okay. The other one that I need to sell out before I take turn on the next question is, the VP said, the Vice President said, Africa as a whole has also been able to meet China's demand for cocoa. How about goat meat? 120,000 carcasses of goat meat is required weekly in different Arab countries. There is still a major gap in supply here as well. I'm just looking at the long-term picture. If we're able to be proactive here, you see what we'll gain.
What the Vice President is saying, these are opportunities everywhere for us.
But if we don't use it well, can it work?
We've not been using it before. So it is just self-realization now. That's what the Vice President is saying. These opportunities had always been there. We abandoned our growth trajectory away from agriculture and latched on to oil and gas, and we forgot all those other opportunities. Okay. We forgot that we could, you could still latch on to oil and gas and still use the capacity building from oil and gas to expand your capacity in agriculture and other related sectors. And that is what the Vice President is saying. Okay. I would not, people that are talking of diversify away from oil and gas, I say no, you diversify in addition to oil and gas. We are yes an oil producing country, but we are more of a gas producing country, and we have not even exploited 20% of our gas reserve. And that is where the world is going. There are clear moves against our oil. There are clear moves against oil production, as it were, either through the shale production or even through diversification to electric-powered vehicles and other technologies. So you could see, going forward in 20, 30 years, there are predictions that use and demand of oil would fall, but not gas. Okay. Gas is not threatened, as it were, so which means that we need to start moving our attention to how we want to exploit and, of course, export our gas. Now, that is one. Our agriculture is the bedrock of our economy. It is natural to us. 70% of of Nigeria's land, either water, land, and what it's about agriculture. So if the president is the vice president is talking about 133,000, that is just in one area of the world, though. It's just in the Middle East. You know, it's not talking about the Americas. It's not talking about even the Arctic areas and all that. So we have huge opportunities. And of course, you are also moving us away from AfCFTA to global trade now. So you can imagine if we can appropriate all these opportunities and start from our own markets. We have not even saturated, we have not used up our market, the Nigerian 200 million plus market. It is huge enough, you know. If we are able to do that, we will be at a level that is even higher than any country in Africa, you know. So it is going to just be a bonus if we are now able to exploit other jurisdictions in Africa, and then, of course, other jurisdictions globally. So it's an economic power that is waiting to be discovered. And we thank God that we have a vice president that is conscious enough that can now start docketing product by product, opportunities by opportunities that are available for Nigerians to exploit, as it were.
Okay, that takes me to the next question on Ken. Now that we are preparing towards the full takeoff of this agreement, which is it next year, is it June or July? July, okay, fine. Let me give you this cue. When we had the flooding crisis in Nigeria, so much support came from the world. But it was then the Nigerian government realized that the emergency policy in Nigeria was not in place. And so much funds came in, there was no account to domicile those funds. So some of them returned back and we lost. So if we don't start out to prepare ahead of the takeoff, that's part of why we came up with this program. For instance, we know in all these customs will be available to do a lot of work, a lot of enforcement, implementation, quarantine, all that. If immigration, all that. What are the plans? You serve the committee to prepare Nigeria to be in sync with other African countries before the takeoff of this program.
Thank you very much. And I think this is where we are supposed to be, hammering on right now. We have advised the president to sign. All stakeholders, I mean, just like he said, the president took a right decision. First of all, through sensitizations and consultations among people, and people laid out their files, all the legitimate concerns that you've noted here were also explained and elaborated upon. And then the president also set up a committee to now do analysis, and these were conducted severally and technically. And at the end of the day, we saw all of these potholes, we saw all of these gaps. But then we were like being between the Red Sea, the devil and the Blue Sea. If we say we do not sign, there were terrible consequences. If we say we sign, there are also consequences. But what do? We now took a path, if you like, Appian way. The Appian way now comes this way. Now, what are the things that we should do? First of all, we should be prepared in terms of what you likely pointed about.
Yes.
Safeguard. Apart from the rules of origin I mentioned earlier, apart from the technical barriers, apart from the administrative barriers, there are also what I call strategic barrier, and I want to raise this flag. Strategic in the sense that, yes, the best way to defend is to attack. And in trade, you can now begin to attack other countries, not defending your territory. You can bring in what you want, but I will first of all be the one to now attack you with my goods. You open your economy, because this is exactly what we have all together signed. Open. Whatever I have here, why the government is now looking at our trade policy and, producing all the necessary documents that we need to produce, while the government is also looking at ways of stabilizing the customs to ensure that our borders are really protected, while we are also, looking at the security agencies to now look at the fact that the insurgents will not come in because of, courtesy of the agreement in trade, free movement of persons and goods. Now we are also ensuring that the agencies of government in terms of security also are also guarding themselves in terms of intelligence gathering and all of that to ensure that small arms do not come in the more through the free movement protocol that we have signed. These are things that we need to now look at. Okay, government agencies like NEPC, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, what are you going to do? It is no longer business as usual. It is no longer going to have, trade mission in South Africa, trade mission in Tunisia, trade mission in... No, it goes beyond that. Where does it come to now? We can now begin to strategically build our export strategies in terms of warehouses in these countries. Now moving the goods that were produced by the PZs of this world, the Cadbury's of this world, move the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, merge together, now give us manufacturers, these products will now launch out and put them in those garages, in those warehouses, so that those countries are seeing them already. They become markets there. No longer moving people, using money, government money to, send people. No. Construct, build, establish those warehouses in those countries. They will now domicile our goods already. Before they take off of the agreement, our goods are standing already looking at them. And of course, it's popularizing Nigerian goods.
I feel very enthused about this.
And I think it's something that we need to... These are some of the strategies that we already plotted. Okay. And we said, okay, now, we know that South Africa is doing better than all the countries of Africa in terms of, trade, in terms of commodity trade. South Africa is doing 23.5%, while the second to South Africa, which is Namibia, is doing 5%. Look at the gap there. And then the third is Zambia, doing 4.9%, and now fourth is Nigeria. Okay. In commodity trade, fourth internationally, 4.4%. Now, how do we now change the dynamics? What we need to do is to strategically look at areas. We have been paying lip service to issues of diversification. Look at those areas. Do some sampling of the goods that are moving the ShopRites of this world, the malls that you mentioned earlier. Take a sample of the goods that are there. Now there should be some level of innovation, research and development that will innovate, that will put, add value to those goods on those tables, and then packaging. Everything goes in line, and then before you say Jack, they are on there at the shelves, waiting for consumption. We will no longer be exporting raw materials in terms of agro-produce, which is doing 2.5%. We will no longer be doing 9%. 1.9% in terms of manufactured products, where we will now have to move whatever cocoa we have here. We will see now that we are bringing in foreign direct investors that will now set up factories, process cocoa. Let us take cocoa, ordinary cocoa, raw cocoa from Cote d'Ivoire, from Ghana, and then, refine them and bring chocolate. And we will now reduce imports from Netherlands, imports from Switzerland, and we are increasing our export to other countries in Africa that are, consuming, chocolate. And if you come to many other, in terms of our oil industry, we are no longer exporting raw crude fully like that. We will not stop, but we are going to look at hydrocarbons. We are going to look at, how we can produce some of those ones, the gas that he mentioned. How do we export them? Now, Morocco was a challenge one time. And Morocco said they wanted to enter into ECOWAS. And we said no, because of security. And we knew what we were looking at. We looked at security implications. We also looked at the trade implications, knowing that Morocco is there at the heel where Europe comes in. Sure. Therefore, in order to guard against goods, unwanted, unneeded goods coming in from Europe like that, without, under the ETLS. And we said, no, Morocco, just hold on. But now, we have no choice. Morocco is a member of the African Union. And Morocco rushed quickly and signed. And therefore, they are part and parcel of it.
Readmitted member.
Readmitted. And then, what do we need to do? It comes to that safeguard again that you mentioned.
Very critical.
What do we do to safeguard our economy? You are not saying that the goods should not come in from Morocco, but you are saying that these are the contents of the agreement. And I read somewhere, very lovely, in terms of law, in the objectives setting up AfCFTA, there are three types of objectives. One is integration of Africa, two is prosperity of Africa, and the third one is a peaceful Africa. And therefore, rising on that particular third, tripod, you can say, for a peaceful Africa, Nigeria is insisting that issues about xenophobia should be treated alongside the agreement. And then we negotiate and say, look, come on, guys, Nigeria is suffering insurgency at this time. And therefore, because we want to have a peaceful Africa, in that spirit, we want to renegotiate and then put in a clause in the AfCFTA that talks about goods, harmful goods, and then movement of goods, how some clauses that can limit the movement in the process of the AfCFTA.
Sure, you have explained that. Let's come back to Nigerians, the people. Nigerians, Africans, because African citizens put together, Nigerian citizens, they have a role to play here. And I'm propelled by this comment here. For Nigeria, the agreement's dispute settlement mechanism would also be a major advance, providing protection against hostile and discriminatory trade practices. But it does have concerns. This includes unfair trade practices such as dumping. We have talked about that. Now, if the patriotic zeal of Nigerians is not reoriented, is it possible that they can speak this? Our worry media-wise is the shrewdness in the business world. A businessman wants profits. A capitalist wants profits. A developed nation that wants to break through, to frustrate this African agreement, they would.
Because already there are opportunities that they can exploit for his own advancement. And I think that's the most important thing going forward.
Well, I'm so happy that we have touched this, but I think working on the safeguards ahead of the takeoff of the AfCFTA is such a huge project. We need hours upon hours to handle this. Well, I must say it was nice having you, Ni Akinsiju, investment analyst,
pleasure,
and Ken Okoha, National President of the Nigerian Traders Association and member Presidential Steering Committee on this. And sometimes somebody told me, he's so sharp, how come he's a trader? I say he's a trade law. Am I correct? So that's happening on Inside.
Thank you very much.
Up next on Inside is the media review segment. Stay with us.
With the signing of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement by President Muhammadu Buhari recently, stakeholders are eager to know the benefits inherent. But the question is, what is the role of the media in ensuring that there is comprehension? My guest, Olawale Hamzat, a producer with the NTA Programs Department, will provide answers. It's nice to have you in our studio.
My pleasure.
All right, so tell us, what exactly would be the role of the media in ensuring that stakeholders, a layman, understand what the agreement is all about?
Fundamentally, the AfCFTA is an initiative of the African Union. And of course, being the initiative of the African Union means that it's an homegrown effort by the regional bloc to ensure that we integrate economically. And of course, the many issues of Africa not interacting with each other are put on the side to play, in ensuring that the populace, Africans, Nigerians, as it were, get to know the benefit of this, because it's not enough to craft all these noble initiatives, agreements, beautiful impact on the economy. The people that will impact, that these things will impact on, need to understand the role they will play and the kind of benefits, so that way they can key into the many benefits of the AfCFTA.
Okay. All right, now let's talk about trade itself. Most people do not really understand what the components are all about. They want to know, because this will spur growth, economic growth. Entrepreneurs will come up. There will be job creation, wealth creation, and job generation. Now, media has a role to play. Are we ringing the bell?
First, I begin with the media themselves. A lot of our colleagues need to understand what the agreement itself is all about, because you cannot give what you don't have.
Yes.
The people who would disseminate need to understand the message they are conveying to the public in the first instance. So I will begin with the media themselves. The media need to acquaint itself with the AfCFTA, the benefits, and the framework of how the AfCFTA will work in countries and, of course, in the region. Then, of course, we can now translate to how the populace should be informed. Now, many times, policies and programs of government get lost in ambiguity. Ambiguity in the sense that we speak too much English in this part of the world. We are typically grassroots people in Africa. That's not to say I'm undermining our people, but the real sense is that there is no meaning communicating with people when the message is lost in the communication process. So the media itself needs to understand what the AfCFTA is all about, and then, of course, our mode of transmitting these messages to the people have to be the everyday language. I watch many television programs since the signing of the agreement by Nigeria, and even the elites, so to say, are confused.
Yes.
You know why? Because the language of communication of the AfCFTA, I've seen many media jargons, permits the word now, because even the acronym, many media houses get it wrong. It's AfCFTA, not ACTA.
Yes, not the other way around.
Now, what that tells you, the fact that the media itself doesn't even understand the message. So the media have a huge role to play in the sense that we need to break down the benefits. Okay. We need to break down the framework, how the whole AfCFTA will impact jobs for young people.
Yes.
Many African countries are plagued with unemployment. Now you are having the largest singular market in the world, 1.2 billion people. That's huge.
That's huge.
Now, manufacturing is going to bloom, industrialization. You're talking about transformation in raw produce from Africa. I mean, Côte d'Ivoire, for instance, produce the largest cocoa in the world. Now, how do you translate your cocoa produce into chocolate, into beverages?
Okay, now, before we delve into that and then talk about standardization, let's talk about local manufacturers. Now, no doubt, with the signing of that agreement, there's an open market in front of Africa.
Absolutely.
And she's ready to hit the market.
Absolutely.
Now, what will happen to the local economy? Will this agreement harm or grow the economy?
In turn, it's a huge benefit for local economies across Africa. Now, what that tells
because we understand that the bigger markets, the bigger players in the economy are already taking advantage.
Well, that's not true. On the surface, many people will see it that way.
Okay.
But you see, to imagine a local producer in Aba, for instance, who probably have a market range of just maybe the Aba township and maybe neighboring states, now have a huge region open to you because of the framework of the AfCFTA. You have the borders, because part of the benefits and the framework of AfCFTA is that you're going to have less border restrictions.
Yes.
You're going to have less border barriers. Now, what that implies is that instead of crossing the border and paying plenty tariffs, you're going to be paying minimum tariffs across the border.
Yes.
So for local players, for small, medium players, you know, in various countries across Africa, they have a huge market to market to, a huge market to relate with. So I don't see threats to the smaller countries or to the smaller players. It's a huge market ahead of them. You know, for instance, a producer in Lagos, for instance, that sells probably to Igbo market and suburbs, can go to Seme, can go to as far as Togo and Benin Republic to sell. So there is no threat to the small players. The small players have a huge access as equal as the big players.
The big players, okay. Now, apart from standardization, the issue of standardization, there's the issue of trust and the porous borders. How do we handle these challenges?
Well, the beautiful thing about this agreement, unlike the previous ones we've seen, you know, on the continent, is that it took cognizance of so many loopholes, so many failings of the previous agreement.
Okay.
One of the reasons why Nigeria didn't sign, you know, it took us almost a year, or over a year actually, to sign the agreement, is the fact that Nigeria was concerned about the rule of origin. The rule of origin implies that you need to guarantee that the product coming into our economy is really and truly manufactured in those countries where they originate from.
Okay.
That is an effort to curb incidents of dumping. Because part of the fears of AfCFTA is that it will lead to dumping by the big economies around the world. There are factories in neighboring countries, branded names of those countries, and bring it to your economy, thereby threatening the growth of the small players in your economy. Okay. But the rule of origin now says, look, you must guarantee, for instance, if you're having Ethiopian coffee come into our shelves in Nigerian shops, there must be a 100% guarantee it's wholly and 100% Ethiopian. Okay. If you have chocolate coming in from Ivory Coast, there must be a guarantee 100% produce of Ivory Coast.
Okay. Now, there's also the issue of false declaration. How do we handle that?
Well, false declaration will be taken care of by standardization. Okay. Because you're not just saying your market is open and everybody can bring in things. You're going to have measures at country level now, which is why beyond just being a regional framework, there is going to be a country, which is why the process of ratification takes care of that. You're going to ensure that your standard and measurement departments are up and alive to the responsibilities. The SON in Nigeria, for instance, in other countries they do have, such that you now have products that are certified to play within the free trade area, certified to be standard, durable, and fit into the market economy that Africa is trying to open up. So standardization would not be a problem. Yes, there will be teething problem at the beginning because of implementation, but I believe with all the things laid out in the framework, Africa should be able to manage that.
Quickly, what is the hope of an entrepreneur, just one, that would like to key into the initiative, and then, or better still, those coming as a group?
Well, the individual entrepreneur or group entrepreneur, as it were, will blossom in the AfCFTA ecosystem.
Rather than going alone.
Yeah, because you are not going to consolidate on what economists will call comparative advantage. Rather than stand alone and not being able to maximize your own economies of scale, you will now be able to say, hey, Lizzie, Wale, let's come together. You bring 100,000, I bring 100,000, and then we'll put resources together. That way we can make a larger output, rather than just doing it at small scale level. That way, when you have entrepreneurs combined, rather than just standing as pockets of entrepreneurs, they will be able to maximize labor, because you have more people employed. You'll be able to maximize technology, power, and so many other resources that will be involved in the process of production. So for me, the AfCFTA provides a good veritable platform for individual entrepreneurs and groups to thrive, because you are going to be maximizing, like I said, on comparative advantage. What is the strength of your country, for instance? If cocoa is the strength, can we go into chocolate production? Can we go into beverage production, rather than just doing it in pockets? So it's a beautiful opportunity for African entrepreneurs, and I think the years that lies ahead, we should be excited.
Mr. Alawi, thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much. This is the much I can take. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Don't forget, let's grow Africa. This is the only continent we have. It is our own.
Well, Lizzie, we're about to go. Were you educated?
Yes, I was. It was quite expository, because Africa is in for it. There's going to be economic growth. Our entrepreneurs will have money.
All things being equal.
All things being equal.
And also learned that, I got to realize, I never thought about it, that trading has no generational platform.
At all.
Everybody's a trader.
And I think this will help sort the issue of standardization, harmonization of standards. It is very important when it comes to trading between countries, African countries, and which I think it's really important for us to thrive in Africa.
Okay. As I sat here and Lizzie sat here, we had it insightful. We believe you also had it insightful. On behalf of all of us, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nobody cares about us, right from Nigeria down here, even coming from Nigeria to Dubai, we didn't eat for 3 days.
Sports in Nigeria have been on the decline in recent years, with only a glimpse of successes recorded lately. Why we continue to make reference to the 1980s and 1990s as the era of the country's hegemonic status in world sports.
From the Lagos Network Center is flooding and the way forward. I am Hinginu John Adams. Thanks for being there. President Muhammadu Buhari has granted audience to the Deputy President of the Senate, Ovie Omo Agege, in furtherance of the renewed commitment by the Executive and Legislature to work in harmony for peace and prosperity of the country. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
The Deputy Senate President, Ovie Omo Agege, met President Muhammadu Buhari behind closed doors. Details of their discussions that lasted about 30 minutes were not made public. Senator Omo Agege, however, told journalists that with the unprecedented support by President Muhammadu Buhari to the nation's military and other security services, Nigerians need not to live in fear as well as uncertainty.
But Mr. President has provided everything that ought to be given to them. Everything in terms of funding they've received, in terms of acquisition of weaponry that's been provided for them. It's not left for them to justify the positions they hold.
The Deputy Senate President used the opportunity to lend his voice behind the clamor for the deployment of troops to the nation's dark spots, especially on the highways, towards containing the prevailing acts of criminality.
As much as possible, you want to keep the military in their barracks, but because of the exigencies of the moment, we have no choice but to encourage that. Nigerians need to be assured of their safety at all times. That's the essence of governance, as guaranteed by the Constitution. Therefore, if, as canvassed by the Vice President, that we have the Army provide security at the checkpoints, if that will go to prevent this kidnapping and banditry, why not?
Senator Omo Agege, elected into the Senate for the first time in 2015, is representing Delta Central Senatorial District. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Senate President Ahmed Lawan says South African government must account for all Nigerians killed in that country. Senator Lawan was speaking at a meeting with the acting South African High Commissioner to Nigeria, Bobby Morrow. Ignatius Nkwa reports.
After the Senate resolved that the South African government must carry out an investigation on the circumstances surrounding the death of a Nigerian woman, Elizabeth Chukwu, the South African Acting High Commissioner to Nigeria, Bobby Morrow, has visited the President of the Senate to brief him on steps taken by the South African government. Morrow explained that the South African government has instituted an inquest into the incident, as the police has retrieved the closed-circuit camera footage, which did not reveal any sign of movement in her room.
So at this stage, the cause of her death is not known, as no report has ever been issued yet. The South African police services are working closely with Emperor's Palace Hotel, where she sadly passed on, in order to establish events leading to the death of Ms. Chukwu.
President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, although appreciated the effort made by the South African government so far, insisted that the investigation must go beyond Mrs. Elizabeth Chukwu to include the 118 Nigerians killed in South Africa between 2016 and 2018, out of which 13 were allegedly killed by the South African police.
We are not going to take this anymore. Any Nigerian killed must be accounted for. We are going to write the names of all Nigerians killed in South Africa, 118, from the time the first killing started to the last.
Senator Lawan reminded the South African delegation of the role Nigeria played during the apartheid period.
As a country, we got involved through our resources, through our emotions, and ANC declared Nigeria a frontline state, even though we have no contiguity.
3 weeks ago, traveled to South Africa for a conference and was found dead in her hotel room. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Unko, NTA News.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, says the National Assembly will ensure adequate budgetary provision for the development of areas affected by banditry and other forms of criminality in Zamfara State. He was speaking at an interactive session with stakeholders in the security management of the state. Haliru Mohammed Umar has details.
Zamfara State has over the years suffered from armed banditry, kidnappings and cattle rustling, which resulted in monumental loss of lives and property. This prompted the Speaker of the House of Representatives to visit the state for an interface with stakeholders with a view to finding lasting solution to the lingering crisis.
We're here simply on a mission, a peacekeeping mission. We're here for nothing else other than to restore and thereafter maintain peace in Zamfara.
The Speaker commended the state governor for the peace initiative adopted by his administration, which according to him is yielding positive result. Zamfara State Governor Bello Muhammad noted that arrangements have been concluded for the establishment of 3 Ruga settlements as a means of restoring peace and stability in the state.
I would like to use this opportunity to appeal to Mr. Speaker to come to the aid of Zamfara State in liaising with the leadership of the Senate for the immediate release of the special federal government intervention fund of 10 billion.
Leaders of the warring parties who spoke at the event also embraced each other as a mark of reaffirming their resolve to give peace a chance. The Speaker had during the visit handed over some released captives to the chairman, Zamfara State Council of Chiefs, for further action. He also donated 2 trailers of assorted rice for onward distribution to IDPs and other victims of banditry attacks in the state. In Gusau, Haliru Muhammad Umar, NTA News.
The presidency has noted public concerns on the unfortunate attack leading to the death of the daughter of the Afenifere leader, Chief Ruben Fasoranti. The senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Garba Shehu, in a statement indicated that the president has already expressed his heartfelt condolences to the family of Mrs. Funke Olakunri with a telephone call. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshimbajo, has in addition paid a visit to the grieving family in Akure, Ondo State. Her death is a tragedy, the statement adds, and that the thoughts and prayers of Nigerians are with her family. It is incumbent on all leaders across the country to consider their language and its potential consequences. Insecurity is an issue Nigeria must face together as one nation united. Times of tragedy like this is not the time for politics. It reveals only disrespect for the departed and her family. Ten persons, including 3 children and the owner of the collapsed building in Dilimi area of Jos Metropolis, have so far been confirmed dead. Zenret Dingmom, who visited the site of the collapsed building this morning for an update, reports that the search and rescue operation are still going on for recovery of 2 others suspected to be under the debris.
The building, which belongs to one Alhaji Rufai Nelele, houses his family, storage areas and a pharmacy, which at the time of the collapse had many people in it making transactions. According to eyewitnesses, the 2-year-old building, which had some cracks in it, was under renovations, and without any notice, it collapsed at about 4:15 p.m. All relevant stakeholders in disaster management are on ground monitoring the evacuation process to ensure all survivors are evacuated and given proper medical attention.
The rescue operators are also giving their support in trying to assist to bring out the people that are trapped from the collapsed building.
3 people to the hospital. 1 is alive, but the other ones we don't know whether they are certified dead by the hospital, but we took them there. But we are yet to debrief and coordinate our efforts so that we know the total number of people that are being referred to the Ola Hospital.
NTA News also gathered that the owner of the building, alongside others, are still trapped in the rubble and are communicating with their neighbors and relations. In Jos, Zenred Dingmun, NTA News.
Closely linked to the tragedy of building collapse is flooding, and I have in the studio the head environmental education Nigerian Conservation Foundation, Abidemi Balogun. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
What are the causes of flooding?
Well, flooding can be caused by so many things. Flooding majorly for this part of the country is caused by rain, that's water. And one of the major leads of flooding is because there is no right passage for the water to flow through once there is heavy rain. Most of the houses being constructed do not have proper drainage system, and waste management also. Some people are the habit of whenever it rains, they bring out their waste and then they pour it directly into the gutter that it will flow away. But unknown to them that plastics don't actually decompose, so it blocks the drainage and the water will overflow the drainage system into their homes. So majorly, flooding, we are major cause of flooding to us as a country.
So from what you said now, what are the precautionary measures to be taken?
Well, we can't stop flood from happening, but we have to kind of prevent it, control it. That's what I can say, because when we are taking waste out of our house, let's ensure that we properly dispose the waste, and before the rain starts, the drainages around our homes, we should clear it so that there will be proper way for the water to flow. We have canals in some areas that are blocked already. So these are some of the things that we can do. We can do it individually, as government needs to also intervene. And then there should be enforcement in place that once it starts raining, anybody caught pouring their waste inside the drainage should be punished or something. There should be something for them, so that it's already in their attitude. And also we need to create more awareness about the impact and the dangers of it. Already they are saying it, but people, I don't know what their mind is. They are not even ready. They are facing the consequences, but they are not ready to desert the old ways of pouring their waste away.
Okay, you just talked about enforcement. Yeah. That reminds me, there are some settlements that you know that whenever it rains, they are prone to flooding. And some of these settlements, government have been telling them that they should leave such places. And they will tell you that our forefathers had been there before us. We cannot go. What is your counsel to such people?
Well, if their forefathers have been there and they've been coping with the raining, because it has been raining all along, so what ways? We need to sit with these local people and identify, because they are the ones facing the problem. They should come up with the solution themselves. Because if you look at a place and you think this is what they need, that might not be what they actually need. So we need to, there should be a dialogue, not. You don't enforce some things at times. There should be a dialogue. Call them, okay, this is the situation you guys are facing. You want to come up with the solution, and then the government will support them in whatever way that they come up with.
Okay, you talked about waste management. Do you think that clean environment have anything to do?
It has a lot to do with it, because We've been clamoring for reduction in plastic pollution since last year. It has been a theme. And when you look at when you go out now, when you look at the major drainages on the road, it's this styrofoam, the plastic, reusable plastic, disposable plastics that are major contributors of it. When you go there, you see it everywhere floating on the water because it doesn't break down, it doesn't go away, so it clogs the drainage and it will not go away. So one, we have to enlighten people more about the impact, the negative impact of their actions on the environment and on themselves. Because if you believe the environment will definitely take care of itself. But you human beings are the ones that will suffer the impact of it.
Okay, Abidemi Balogun, it has been an educative one. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
You're still watching Panorama coming to you from the Lagos Network Center. We now pause for a break. The program continues shortly.
It's an evil practice abolished all over the world over 200 years ago. But today, human traffickers are selling human beings as slaves in Africa. It is your responsibility to make sure that you and the people you know do not fall into slavery. Don't believe fake promises of jobs abroad.
People went to say Libya, Italy no use you when they carry me on top water. 4 days now they lock me for inside house, no food, no water. I nearly die. Now God, when me heaven and earth, now save me. If you get 1 naira for Nigeria, you get junior one, you say you no get papa, you no get mama, that make you come out. I beg go they do farm work. You better pass person when enter road.
Don't accept to travel to Europe through the Sahara Desert. You may be walking into slavery. Don't be a slave.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by N.
Thanks for being there. The World Health Organization is reaffirming its pledge to work with the federal government through the Northeast Development Commission to rebuild the region. WHO officer in charge, Clement Lugala Peter, met the commitment during a visit to the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa. Mitaire Ben reports.
Rebuilding the Northeast region, which was ravaged by insurgency, is both Herculean and capital intensive. WHO, which has been involved in humanitarian activities in the Northeast, says it is pleased with the political will exhibited by the Buhari administration to rebuild the region through the establishment of the Northeast Development Commission and is willing to be part of government's response in the region.
In the context of health, it means to strengthen the health systems to be able to deliver. We see pockets of new displacements, which will try to address it, but I think working with the government to ensure that the health systems is built.
We believe that with the establishment of the Northeast Development Commission, we have one hub that would coordinate the activities of all the interventions that are coming from different international donor partners in the Northeast.
Meanwhile, Bayelsa State Governor Sirake Dixon, who was among numerous visitors to the office, has described the reappointment of the SDF by President Buhari as a positive development. He appealed to politicians in the country to close ranks and work for national interest.
We need to do more in terms of working, across party lines, supporting and encouraging one another, but also raising the vital issues.
The SDF appealed to state governments to deepen democracy in the country by domesticating the developmental initiatives of the federal government. In Abuja, Mitaire Ikben, NTA News.
The Presidential Election Petition Court has resumed hearing on the petition of the People's Democratic Party and its candidate Atiku Abubakar. The court adjourned last Friday as a result of an alleged attack on the witnesses of the petitioners who were coming from Zamfara State, an allegation that the Zamfara State Police Command has refuted. Dele Atumbi reports.
This Monday's hearing, the People's Democratic Party and its candidate Atiku Abubakar called additional 4 witnesses. This brings to 40 the witnesses the petitioners have called out of the 400 they proposed. The first 3 witnesses in their evidence in chief alleged irregularities in an election where they claimed to have voted without any molestation. During cross-examination, the witnesses could not tell the court the purported result their party and other political parties in their claimed lawful votes scored in the February 23 presidential election. One of the witnesses who alleged vote buying and overvoting also admitted during cross-examination that he did not visit all the polling units but relied on the information provided by the polling agents who were alive but not in court to testify in the matter. The petitioners also tendered additional 48 documents as well as asked for the leave of the court to present documentary evidence through their star witness, who is the spokesman of Atiku Abubakar. Counsel to the respondents, Alex Exion, SAN, for President Muhammadu Buhari, Niyi Akintola, SAN, for the APC, and Usman Ustaz, SAN, objected to the admissibility of the evidence and the presentation of the electronically generated evidence in the open court. Relying on the Court of Appeal decision in Mimiko vs. Oke, counsel to the respondents described the tendering of the documents as an ambush due to the fact that they were not front-loaded in line with paragraph 4 subsection CC of the first schedule of the Evidence Act. Counsel to the petitioners, Chris Uche, SAN, countered this legal line of thought with an averment that the petitioners are at liberty to either front-load or list the document as stated in paragraph 4, subsection 5(1)(c) of the first schedule of the Evidence Act. Also relying on the decision of the Supreme Court in Dixon vs. Siva, counsel to the petitioners urged the court to dismiss the objection, pointing out that all the counsel agreed for documents to be tendered and reasons for objections reserved for their final addresses. Its unanimous ruling, the 5-man panel of justices led by Justice Mohamed Gaba said since parties had agreed to raise objections and give reasons for their objections in their final addresses, the court affirmed that the documents to be tendered were within the agreement of the parties in the matter before the court. Due to the relevance of the documents, the court admitted them in evidence. 6 out of the electronically generated documents were played in the open court. These included the statement purportedly credited to INEC chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, expressing the hope that result will be electronically transmitted, and the claimed affirmation of same by the resident electoral commissioner for Akwa Ibom State, Mike Igini. During cross-examination, the attention of the court was pointed to the issue of hope as expressed by INEC chairman, and that Igini was not the spokesman of INEC.
Very happy with the ruling of the court admitting all the 48 video CDs that we applied to tender. We are very happy with this milestone.
While the court adjourned to Tuesday, 16th July 2019 for further hearing, counsel to the respondents declined comments. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
As a way of decongesting the courts, the Lagos multi-door courthouse is encouraging Nigerians with disputes in areas of property, administration of state, medical negligence, banking and insurance to come forward for settlement at no cost to the parties. The director, Lagos Multi-Door Courthouse, Adeyinka Aderin, at the opening of the settlement week, said the initiative is meant to supplement justice delivery by offering alternative options to resolving disputes. Vera Chinuba has more.
The settlement week of the Lagos Multi-Door Courthouse is designed to impact the justice system of Lagos State through reduction of caseload in the courts. It is also to encourage early settlement of cases, create awareness of the alternative dispute resolution, and boost public confidence.
Considering the number of parties that have come into the center today, you can see that there is a definitive buy-in from the legal. It is definitely a cheaper method, it is faster, and parties come out as friends.
Facilitators who are legal experts mediate on a wide range of disputes, from employment, trade, family, succession, landlord and tenant, brought by the parties.
Since we started having the settlement week, we've been able to settle so many cases, and we've been able to assist the courts in reducing the court docket.
The way they talk to us, talk to me and the tenant, the way they do everything, I like them, the way they do.
The Lagos Settlement Week is, however, not without challenges.
We need the assistance or, well, the contributions and cooperation of institutions by sending adequate representation of people who can take decisions during this settlement week.
Out of the 753 cases mediated on in 2018, 456 were settled. Among them are an administration of estate case, which had been in court for 29 years, and a bank claim of 1.8 billion naira. The Lagos Settlement Week is a joint initiative of the Lagos Multi-Door Courthouse, Lagos State Judiciary, Lagos State Government, and the Nigerian Bar Association. In Lagos, Viera Chumuba, NTA News.
Let's join Ayodeji Makinde on Sports Update.
Delta Force Masters team has continued their impressive run as the Nigeria Hockey Six-a-Side Masters after a 2-1 penalty victory over Sahara Masters team of Bauchi in Series 2 at the Moshood Abiola National Stadium, Abuja. Having won Series 1 in Port Harcourt in April, Lagos State hosts Series 3 in October ahead of the Invitational Africa Hockey Masters Tournament in South Africa in November.
It is our responsibility making sure that the young kids that are coming up who are playing this game actually met a better opportunity than we did a couple of years